Ukraine tells Moscow to stop wasting the world's time. This after 5 hours of talks with U.S. envoys at the Kremlin ended without a breakthrough. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov says no compromise has been reached on territory, a key issue Moscow says must be settled to move the peace process forward. He admits there's still a lot of work to be done in both Washington and Moscow. Ukraine, for its part, refuses to give up land Russia has taken. Now the big question is, will the Trump administration ramp up pressure on Russia or Ukraine to make concessions? Joining us now to discuss is Andrij Dobriansky, Director of Communications and Media at the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Ukraine says Putin is wasting the world's time. Is Russia at the table in good faith or buying time?
I think we saw a lot of wasting time in Moscow, especially with Americans traveling there on behalf of President Trump and having to wait for President Putin even to walk into the room. It's unfortunate, but we do know that progress has been made in terms of ramping up pressure. As you asked earlier, the pressure has been on the Russian oil revenues, and we can report that as of November of this year, oil revenues in Russia have not just been estimated from outside Russia, but earlier this week, Russia has itself confirmed that their oil revenues are 34% lower than they were a year ago this November. So this pressure is what is needed to get Russia to accede to certain points, and that's not the point we're at right now, unfortunately.
Russia insists no peace deal is possible without Ukraine giving up territory. What does that demand tell you about the Kremlin's long-term goals?
Well, it's clearly been the same, especially with President Putin having a speech last week where he said that so long as Ukraine is fighting back, that he is willing to fight to the last Ukrainian. We also heard that President Putin was willing to deploy weapons of mass destruction against Europe if they so willed to start a war against him. It's really this kind of rhetoric that goes against the calls for peace. As you mentioned, the Holy Father praying for this and even meeting with a delegation from the United States led by Senator Amy Klobuchar in the last week, asking for the petition to get children released. There are nearly 20,000 children who've been stolen by Russia during the course of their occupation of Ukrainian territories.
NATO allies now want a formal say in any future peace agreement. Should NATO have a seat at the table, or does that risk escalating tensions further?
Well, what we saw and read in the 28-point plan that was proposed from the United States was mention of NATO, a NATO status for Ukraine, and also where troops could be stationed in NATO countries already. So by default, they should have a say in what happens if they're mentioned in the agreement. Of course, this year we have a seminal change in the United States support for Ukraine, whereas we are not giving Ukraine any weapons from appropriated monies from the United States. Now, all of that is being paid for through the Pearl program, which was initiated by Donald Trump in July of this year, along with the head of NATO. Now NATO has a bigger role as opposed to earlier this year, where the United States was still giving money appropriated, not money, but weapons and artillery appropriated under President Biden.
Andrij Dobriansky, Director of Communications and Media at the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, thank you so much.
Thank you.